Okay, thanks, Kat. You've just done your phonology presentation, and we're going to talk about it now for 5 minutes. First of all, can you tell me a little bit about how the students reacted to the work you did with them when they started actually creating the stories? You activated the language, they had to invent these stories. How did they actually react to that?
Well, as I remember it, they found it quite amusing, and they got into it because they were using the characters from their group. So it was funnier, and I think it engaged them a lot more. What I also noticed is that because of the study section before, they were quite keen to self-correct and peer-correct, which was what I was really interested in. And they definitely paid more attention to the pronunciation as opposed to before.
And did you notice any improvement in subsequent lessons, you know, when these items came up? Did you notice they were pronouncing them better?
I would say they went through the same steps. They would make the mistake because it was still fresh, and the L1 influence is very strong.
Yeah.
But then they would go back and self-correct. Other students would correct them, and they would appreciate the help and be willing to focus on it a bit more. It didn't happen overnight, but right. It's definitely improving.
Okay. The idea of them pronouncing, we've got a problem here with voicing and voiceless. And is that a physical problem for the Spanish students, do you think, that they can't physically voice or not voice, or is it just something about the context and the spelling?
I would say from what I've seen so far with Spanish students, it's mostly the influence of their L1. My Spanish is not very good, but I know that they tend not to pronounce final D sounds, as in Madrid. So then sometimes they would say things like, yesterday I listened to music, although they're very aware of the ED ending in writing. So that would be a problem. But I would also say that getting into too technical details about voicing and unvoicing tends to be unnecessary, because they start thinking about all these all the rules, and it doesn't make them better able to use the correct pronunciation in spontaneous conversation.
Yeah. And I notice you decided to sort of ignore the distinction really in pronunciation and focus on two, that either it's id, an extra syllable, or you keep the same, as you say, the rest kind of flows. It's difficult to get it wrong. Once you've decided it's one syllable, you can't physically say it, decided, or whatever it is. Asked doesn't come naturally, does it? It's asked. However, a lot of course books I've seen, I suppose they're usually around about intermediate level, do kind of get students dividing things into 3 columns, not 2, and separating the t and d. Why do you think that is? Do you think that's just wrong, or perhaps better in a different context?
I wouldn't say it's wrong, and it's definitely more detailed and accurate. But what I've noticed, when I started teaching this point of pronunciation, I used to do the same, and I found that the students found it confusing, and I think it complicated things more than it was necessary. And because the main problem was them saying ed irrespective of the verb, I chose to focus on that.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there. I often wonder why course books make that distinction. As you say, I've never heard a student say propose it. Just talking about the story for a second. This was a very nice, engaging story about this couple who get married when they haven't even met. Now, you did a sort of dictogloss for the first bit of it, and then they read the story and they kind of took the examples out of it. I wondered why you didn't have a taped version of that, or you telling the story to give them the listening. Was there any reason for that?
Well, my idea was to test their pronunciation in this particular lesson before I actually focused on it and studied it. So I would only spend time and get them to pay more attention to what was really a problem, and not to what a book might suggest the problem was.
Okay.
So by giving them a chance to discuss the story, they had to use quite a lot of the verbs in the story, and that gave me a very clear idea of what they could and couldn't say correctly.
Right, so you don't think they really needed to hear the story or the words in context of that?
It was
at
just
that
a
stage?
different approach. I think it would have been equally valuable to play the recording after they've read the introduction and predicted the content, and then they would have been exposed to the correct pronunciation. It's conscious exercise, more conscious exercise, awareness raising exercise.
Okay, well, thank you very much.